Hi, this is Rúna, and you're listening to the Changemakers podcast, where we share tips, insight, tools, and stories from other changemakers designed to motivate you to become the change you want to see in your world. Make sure you join our Changemakers community at runamagnus.com/podcast. And now, this is your time to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Elke, welcome to the Changemakers podcast. I'm so pleased to have you as our guest. Knowing what you've been doing over, I don't know, it's been quite a number of years since the last time, since we actually originally met. Which has never been in person. It's always been online, right?
Yes.
And you are one of those people in my network that I think about when it comes to the life of politicians and the world of politics. And the world is, I believe, we're going through such a dramatic time in this space and age and space and day, that there's a deeper need for a paradigm shift in the political world than we've seen for a long time. And so I wanted to dig into your knowledge and dig into your experience working in this field for so many years. Can you share with our audience where you see the political world be today and where is it heading?
Yeah, thank you, Rúna. Thank you for asking and for inviting me to this. Well, my prognosis and my motto is always, even if it sounds a little bit provocative, political parties are heading towards being a thing of the past. Because imagine political parties came into being in the 17th, 18th century. Yeah. So they are more than 18th, 19th century. They're more than 200 years old.
Yeah.
And whilst the world has changed dramatically, I always try to explain it in a way, the world is growing together. And you can see that in every area of life, traveling, what we are doing now, seeing each other a long distance. And the world is growing together everywhere, whereas we tolerate governing ourselves within a system that is meant to be divisive. I mean, it is political party systems, it's their nature to be divisive. And whilst they may have been a very good solution at the time when it was about representing this branch of people and the other group of people, never about women, by the way.
Of course not, no.
It made sense then, but we are holding tight to this kind of system in a world which has changed so dramatically. And whilst you're doing that, if you hold on to a solution which is outdated, the solution tends to become counterproductive. And that's what we're seeing now. We don't have a competition any longer. We have walls in some countries between politicians, and the way they treat each other is unbearable for me to watch at times. Yeah. For you as well, I suppose. Yeah. So what I'm noticing is that many people, very progressively thinking politicians, independent of their party background, by the way, and citizens, realize we have to do something about this and we want to do something about this. And that's what I'm watching and observing in Europe at the moment. I'm interviewing the actors who are opening up the party structures, if you like, by including other people into decision-making, people who have nothing to do with parties, or independently if they like one party or not. So including citizens, including experts in any area of life. And thus the relevance and the importance of political parties is gradually declining. And I even quote in my forthcoming book and two leading European politicians, one of them, Daniel Cohn-Bendit, he wrote a book about this. He wrote a book which is called Pour supprimer les partis politiques. It only exists in French, which means let's abolish political parties.
Mm-hmm.
And former head of government, Michel Rocard, he also said, whilst he was already out of office, well, party structures don't work any longer. So you see that this realization. But then again, the job of a politician nowadays is so hectic that whilst they are inside that job, they don't take usually the time out to reflect and get the bird's view. And some have started doing it. And that's what I'm so passionate and fascinated about. And I support these people. I coach these people. I connect them across Europe so that they can learn it from each other. And I will soon launch a website on that.
Oh, wow. So that is really where we're heading is no boxes in politics. You as an individual who are passionate enough, or you have this passion or this purpose that you want to see this particular change in your world, in your environment, you step into your power and become that change in the political world. That's basically what I'm hearing you say. That's the future. Is that how you see the future to be emerging? That's a new paradigm in politics?
That's what I would say, yes. For the time being, we have a number of differing models, if you like, and we find them at local levels, regional levels, national levels, and there are some platforms on the international level where practitioners come together to exchange best practices. Now, there's still a lot of work to be done, obviously, but some models are already up and running, whereas there are other models which are in the experimental phase, of course. Mm-hmm. So what I do is, on my website, I will depict first and foremost the models that are already up and running and have proved to be successful.
Can you share with us some of those models that are... Yeah?
Happy to, very happy to. If you like, I can share one local and maybe one regional.
Yes, beautiful.
Good.
Thank you.
Let's look at a local model. It's a town in the UK called Frome, 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 25,000 inhabitants. And they thought, well, we have these councillors, they're not really doing a lot in this town. At the city council, they had party politicians as councillors, and the citizens noticed that they were blocking each other, and this was, of course, a break to innovation. You can't innovate if you don't even come up with a proposal because you think that the other party will say no anyway. So that's what the citizens saw, and they said, well, we need to do something about it. So now in 2011, the UK adopted a law called Devolution Act, which allowed local areas, local communities, to form a political party, which is called a minor party. That means you don't have to observe all the bureaucratic conditions, and you just form a minor party. Now, the thing is that in order to get elected, for the time being, you still do have to become a party. Nevertheless, I say they are trying to get round it. So you see all these ways to get round it. So these citizens did that. Then the citizens said, well, we need to get other citizens on board. And they canvassed by telling the other citizens, hey, we are new to this job. We haven't got a clue how to do it. But one thing we can tell you is we will cooperate with you so that we get this town back to flourishing and we can do something together. And they also said, we don't have any party program, because we always see that party programs don't work anyway, because you cannot implement your party program one-on-one because the other party has a different party program. So you can't do that.
Yeah.
And these citizens were so successful, and they're called the Initiative for Frome, that in the next local elections, they actually won 11 seats out of 17. And since then, we had 2 more local elections every 4 years. They won all of them. Second time round, they won all of them. Third time round, again now this May, They won all of the seats, Initiative for Froome, and they say we don't want to stick there individually too long, so we have a kind of rotation system so that other citizens can get on board as well. That's very important to them. And they bring in people like you and me, coaches, at the city council, because they say, now we don't have 2 or 3 party voices here. We have 17 individual voices. Yeah. So how do we process them? So they bring in a coach or a facilitator who guides them through processes. The people I interviewed said, well, we actually literally learned to put ourselves into other people's shoes.
Wow.
And that's a deep learning. And they do include other citizens into their work. They have a number of platforms which they use to include the expertise of other citizens. So that is one blooming example, flourishing example.
Yeah, and has worked regarding to projects have been executed, there's this progress in place, because often you hear well, if we didn't have that system, that would mean nothing would happen. There would be just consistently just talking about it and no action. So that's not the case.
That's not the case here. On the contrary, they realize that they don't have much money. So you realize that the town hasn't got much money. Government reduced the local subsidies even. So how can we do that? So they look what kind of groups and mini social groups, volunteer groups do we already have here? They connected with them and said, how can we help you so that you raise some money for the purpose that you're doing? So they have it's like starting in the middle and then spreading out your network in order to involve as many people as you possibly can. Which at the same time, all of these models are also telling me we would love to have many more citizens involved than we do have. So that tells you that it is still a starting point, but it's there.
Yeah. I've seen, now I live in Reykjavik, Iceland, and I've seen that one of the things that I can do as a citizen in Reykjavik is that I can go online and it's called Your Neighborhood, bit of a thing, and I can go in there and I can vote for ideas that have come up by citizens. I've even created an idea on that platform myself for things to be developed or for things to happen, or it's really about environment or schools or whatever it is in my own neighborhood, and I can vote on it. And so that becomes actually like a general vote. But of course you need to empower people and make them realize that they have a voice and they can say it. So the platform is there, really it is. And I also know when it comes to Reykjavik that every single citizen can see, it's very transparent when it comes to their expenses and where they're putting their money and funds and everything in different projects. So I think that is also really good. But again, citizens have to be aware that they have this access. Do you think in this case, in your case, what you're just talking about, is that something that is also a possibility? Sorry, I'm stumbling here. I'm thinking of too many things at the same time.
Do you mean the digital contributions? Yeah. Well, I see that. I'd have to look into this model. It's a small town. They probably have something. I can't tell you right out of the top of my head. But what is, of course, important also with digital tools, which I use in bigger areas, for sure, is that not only do citizens have to know that these possibilities exist and they need to be encouraged or encourage each other to take part in that, they also have to know that this is being taken account of. Even if it's not being implemented one-on-one, then at least they need to see that politicians not only take this seriously, but they actually implement something.
Yeah.
The results. Otherwise, citizens won't invest their time and energy into these kind of things.
Yeah, and then they need to feel that they are included, like their decision or their vote or whatever, it matters.
Yes.
And that it's not just at the time when they go through their general election, that they are listening to, that's the old way.
That's it.
That it's consistently open and transparent. Yeah, that is really interesting. Do you see then with all systems, when one system is declining and another system is rising, and in this case we're talking about politics, and so exciting to look at that this way, where do you feel, what is the challenge, the real challenge for us to put our energy and our focus on a system that is, I want to say, more human somehow?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, the challenge is to make, from my point of view and from my work, to make this known. Because for instance, when I'm invited to talks, it happens that I talk about these models, I explain them the way I just did, and then somebody asks at the end, well, I like your ideas, but how do you ever want to see them implemented? And then I said, thank you very much, but I wished I had such ideas. I'm just talking about something that already exists.
Exactly.
People, and that's normal. If you only follow politics through the traditional media, you won't hear about this. And you know that very well, Rúna, with your Antil experience some years ago. You have to do some research to find these things. But they are seedlings everywhere right now. So that is, coming back to your question, a real challenge. How can we spread the word even more and let those people tell their stories so that, we see that this changes? Because the thinking, I also did an analysis. What do these models have in common? As I said, they are so diverse, so different, and you find them on these different levels. But what they have in common is that they are opening up towards other people's opinions. They want to co-create rather than to fight something. And you see that in their language too. So what we have in traditional politics is that we're fighting all the time. Political language is a language of war. Yeah. And there is even a research area called political linguistics, which will tell you that. And what we do all the time in traditional politics is also define what we no longer want. So we fight crime, we fight the financial crisis, we fight climate change. So that means that collectively we are focusing on the problem, and the brain is incapable of, at the same time, focusing on the problem and seeing any kind of solution.
Yeah.
What you see in these new models is that they say, well, if we want to co-create together, then we need to define where do we want to go? Mm-hmm. What results do we want to achieve? And that's what they do.
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, it is. And so basically creating your focus point and then placing your energy to that focus. Exactly. And where your focus is, where your attention is, that's where energy goes. So when your attention is on the fight and what is, this is just a typical box conversation when I think about it. It's really about consistently talking about what makes us different or what are we fighting for, rather than how can we put our heads together in a way that we all also feel that we created it. This is a human thing to feel, hey, I was part of that.
Yes.
I think when I think about going back to the debate that we're looking at in politics in Reykjavik in particularly, it's just, it's really into the opposite group is basically just like they feel that's their role to be opposite.
That's it. And that's systemic. That's the nature of that system. You're not supposed to be best friends with the other party.
No, exactly. And you kind of and it makes everyone that is not just really passionately into politics, that it just makes me go, I don't want to go there. I don't want to put my energy into this. I don't want to, And which is a pity, because there is basically a there's a platform where you that is already available for you to make your stand and to come in with your ideas and to do all these things. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. When it comes to Europe, now I know that you've been working quite a bit with the European Parliament.
Yes.
Here's a little box question that is popping up in my mind here. Is there a difference between genders of being open for the new way of doing politics? Do we see both men and women in for that, or do we see more of either gender?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, I have actually interviewed, I would almost say, more men than women. But that may have been a coincidence.
Yeah.
But I have not noticed that there are many more women than men. So it was not noticeable. I have not done any studies around that. But no, I can't tell you.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're saying and what we're not saying, but just what we've noticed when we're doing our No More Boxes breakfast clubs and looking at the gender box, it's the danger of saying women are collaborative and into communication and want to talk things through and all of that, and man, they are just straightforward, putting people into boxes because of their gender is dangerous.
Yes, that's true. But when I look at politics, of course, you still have more men
as
politicians than women. So this may be playing a role.
Well, but if that's the case at today, and I think that is evolving as well, that people come in for who they are, not because of their gender. And if both men and women are saying, okay, I want to embrace this part of me, that means I want to be more open to learn how to be collaborative or how to co-create. I might not have that as naturally my skills. It might be there, but I haven't really tapped into that, and I want to increase that. I also think that's a possibility. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so too. And what I read about, because you said what's the ratio between men and women, that many women apparently do not want to go into the traditional politics as we see it, because they find it too hard, too tough, too nasty. So my hope would be that more women might get attracted by the new ways in politics, because that's more natural. I mean, I even interviewed a man, he was the mayor of his town, and he actually used the word, we need to feminize politics.
Yeah.
A man who said that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Going into that, what is feminine and what is masculine is a whole nother conversation, but just adding into it, I think, because language is so powerful. And one of the things that we've seen in the work that we've been doing, just using those two terms is dangerous.
Yeah. Because
it goes back to, am I being masculine, or am I being feminine, or now I'm sharing something that is personal for myself, because I've not, throughout my life, I've not been seen as being feminine. I've seen being masculine, and it's not very empowering to hear that for some reason you don't belong.
Yes.
You have to, So if we could just use whatever that is, that who we are, without grouping it into being either a masculine or feminine, I think that just alone would make life easier for many of us.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Elke, this has been so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing the new paradigm of politics, and thank you for all the work that you are doing in this world, enabling people that are passionate about changing their world by doing it in a way that is sustainable, inclusive, and pragmatic.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Was this podcast of value for you? I sure hope so. If so, feel free to share the love and give us your generous review on iTunes or Stitcher. And remember that you can always go to runamagnus.com to find out more about the Changemakers and how we can help you drive the change you want to see in